I don't think I need it all. Anyway, okay. About the pyruvates, you got two of them, right? How many carbons apiece are the pyruvates? Three. So I could write out that this is 6 carbons and this is 3 carbons, but since there's two of them, that would get us our 6. Awesome. Now remember from yesterday, we did this division line about right here, and we said that everything to the left of it was aerobic or anaerobic? Anaerobic. And everything over here was aerobic, anaerobic, aerobic. So remember we talked about yesterday Simmons, right? Spandex, 1980s. Okay. Yeah. From now on, I want you to dress on like mitochondria in your head when you think about mitochondria. It's wearing spandex, and it's doing aerobics with Richard Simmons in like the 1980 VHS tape. Everything, it's all there. Mitochondria is there too.
Little steps.
The little steps. Yes. Okay. Now the next step I think is going to be to talk about how are we going to transition to the inside, right? How are we going to go from the anaerobic to the aerobic environment? Because remember, of course, you've got the cytoplasm out here, and you've got the mitochondria right here. So how do we transition inside? But before I do that, I'm going to show you, or I want to talk to you about how we could not transition inside. How could we keep this process going on the outside? And that was what? Fermentation. And there's two types of fermentation, and it's not a choice. It's not like you choose one or the other. There is the type that bacteria and some yeast would do, which would be ethanol fermentation. Sometimes that's just listed as being alcohol fermentation. And then what's the other type? It's the type you do. Lactic acid. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about this. What?
I hate this desk.
So if I have oxygen, I'm going inside. If I don't have oxygen, I'm staying on the outside. We're 100% clear on that. Okay. Well, let's talk about like the implications of this. Let's say that you have never ran before, which basically would probably be like a description of me. Okay, so pretend you were I. If I'm not running too often, what that really means is that my hemoglobin cannot like adequately become saturated with O2, which means that when my hemoglobin matches up with my myoglobin, hemoglobin of course is carrying oxygen in your blood. Myoglobin is picking the oxygen off of your hemoglobin. Myoglobin's in your muscles. That conversion of oxygenating hemoglobin, letting it dump off the oxygen, then oxygenating the myoglobin, and carrying that oxygen to your muscles, that entire series of reactions as transitioning oxygen is not good. Basically, on a cellular level, my endurance is nothing. Which is why, if I just think of running, my muscles hurt. Now, the reality of that is that, well, it's really because I'm not endurancing, I'm not having oxygen in my blood. So I would be going this route, right? Now, if I decided to pick up with like a regimen of working out, of fixing my problems, would my muscles burn? My muscles would burn like day 1, correct? Day 2, day 3, of course they would burn. But describe 1 year from now, and I've kept with the program. More or not as much? Okay, so I build up endurance. That's actually what endurance is. Endurance isn't like this magical ability because you've done it before. It's literally a cellular explanation of events. Endurance is nothing more than the fact that you know what to do with your oxygen now. You figured out how to manipulate oxygen correctly. You can carry it efficiently. You practice something, usually things happen with better efficiency, right? Your hemoglobin can dump oxygen off. What happens to people that are smokers for a long, long period of time? What happens to their extremities? You feel their hands cold or hot? Cold. Huh. Do you know what has a better affinity for hemoglobin than oxygen does? carbon monoxide. Carbon monoxide gas has a better affinity for hemoglobin. What does that mean for a smoker? Well, they have tons of carbon monoxide attached to their hemoglobin, and they can't pull it off. They can't get the oxygen on it. So what does that mean? They're not getting oxygen to their cells far away. That would make sense, because their hemoglobin is basically being attacked by carbon monoxide. So no oxygen at their extremities. So they do this, and they don't make tons of ATP, because they never really get that option. Logical? Okay. Did you have a question?
What? So when you have endurance, but then like you don't exercise or anything for a while and you lose it, does your body forget how to manipulate the oxygen?
It's not. It's really just. And I hate to say the term like manipulate oxygen. Really, what it comes down to is an ability to like to either gain oxygen on the hemoglobin and then dump it right off. Like imagine, you know how like you see like a game show or something like that where you turn and one individual passes you something, and you do this and you dump it off. If you've worked as a team for a while, you can do this efficiently. But you know, like if you just put these people together and you set them in that line, it's kind of a joke to watch the first couple of times because they're dropping stuff and they haven't figured out their pattern. That's kind of like your hemoglobin. You take those people out of that setting for years and then you bring them back as a group, they're not going to be as efficient as when they left off initially, but they will get back to efficient. And that's kind of what this is like. Good so far. So no oxygen, lactic acid fermentation. Now, when you're running and you don't run at all, you know how your muscles cramp up, right? There's the lactic acid that's being produced. Where else do you feel bad? The cramp right here. Do you know what organs are right here? Kidneys are back here. Liver. Liver right here. Okay. Huh. So somehow, this event is directly correlated with my liver pain, right? Okay. Glycolysis is a reaction that takes glucose and makes two pyruvates, correct? That's all glycolysis is. Glycolysis is this event. Okay. Well, you probably have never seen lactic acid up close, so I'll, whatever. But ethanol or any other alcohol for that matter, like rubbing alcohol or anything with an OH group on it, because that's what alcohols have, what can you do with them? If I put it on the table and took a match to it, would it light? It would. So that means that these have tons of energy still, right? Okay. Like CO2, that doesn't have a lot of energy, but the alcohols, they do have a lot of energy. Your body would actually like work to maintain that energy inside. In other words, you're not going to just like remove these. Your body would hate to do that. They still represent potential energy. If I go to CC's and I get like one of the pieces to take home, and I've eaten like most of the pizza, but there's still 3 pieces left, I don't just throw it away. I save it, because that represents energy, right? So your body would do the same strategy. The problem is that it's unusable energy. Well, there's 2 places in your body that can actually reverse this process. Reverse the process, we go anti-glycolysis. One place is in your liver, the other place is in your kidneys.
How would you do this?
What?
So why would you reverse it?
You would reverse it because these still represent high energy molecules. And they're actually also volatile molecules, which means that they're highly reactive molecules. Not only do you need to neutralize them, but they have tons of energy still in them. So you send these molecules, specifically the lactic acid, because that's what you produce, you send that back to your, or you don't send it back, but you send it to your liver, to some degree your kidneys, and your kidneys and liver input your own personal bodily energy to remake the glucose molecule. In other words, you've gone down the steps halfway and you realized you went down